Good day, everyone. I am Dr. Richard Gonzalez, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you about maximizing the data and information we gather from our students and teachers to support their learning and development process and improve our school. We live in a data-rich environment. Education decision makers have access to wealth of information about students, teachers, administrators, and other staff in schools. These data include students' test results and academic performance, teachers' teaching behavior, instructional challenges, and school organizational and operational statistics. However, these data have limited use and could be detrimental if decision makers do not understand the advantages and restrictions of data, the types of data relevant to decisions they are confronted with, and how the data can be appropriately used for decision making. Schools are always searching for strategies and approaches to help raise students' achievement and total development and wellness. School administrators, such as principals and supervisors, rely on teachers and counselors to collect data and use a wide range of data to inform decisions at all levels of education, from individual students and classroom to school-wide and even district, regional, and nationwide. Datno, Park, and Holsetter 2007 established the relationship between levels of data use and increase in student achievement and total performance. Quickly, think back to a major decision you made recently. You know the kind of situation that obliged you to read everything on a topic and led you to devote hours of overwhelming every last scrap of data, from assessment results to pieces of information. How would that work out for you? We like to believe that more information drives more thoughtful decision, that the more features we recognize, the better we will be. That's why we subscribe to Google Alerts, Wikipedia, cling to our smartphones and iPads, and far out our Twitters, Instagrams, and FB stories. What I hope you would gain from my presentation is the ability to understand the data-driven decision-making process applied in a school setting using the data gathered by teachers and school staff. The ability to identify the types of data to be collected. The ability to identify what data reports are more useful to teachers and administrators. Ability to identify what major barriers hinder the data collection process. And lastly, the ability to analyze data reports to support students' development and school improvement. So, let's begin to understand the concept of data-driven decision-making, or better known as DDDM or D3M. Data-driven decision-making is the process of making choices or options based on appropriate analysis of relevant information according to Mettler. Using and evaluating data are essential steps to student and school improvement processes. That's also according to the Data Quality Campaign 2013. According to NSHREL 2006, data are any information about students and the school that can be collected, appraised, and analyzed in order to generate valuable information. Teachers and school administrators can focus their attention on specific indicators revealed by the data and identify priority areas to direct their attention. That's according to Burnout 2004. Hence, examining data, formulating hypotheses, and generating action plans help teachers and school administrators to move forward to create positive change in students and the school. So why use data to make decisions? According to Slavin, Allen, Holmes, and Chamberlain, 2013, more access to robust data and more information enables teachers to test their assumptions, identify needs, and measure outcomes. Hence, teachers and school administrators are using data-driven decision-making to provide more individual instruction and counseling to students, identify successful instructional strategies and counseling programs, better allocate resources, physical, financial, and human resources, and better communicate with parents, teachers, and students. What data should we collect to use to make decisions? In our schools, there is an abundance of information stored and filed, such as student records, student learning programs like tests, grades, and progress reports, student assessments, psychological test results, human resources records of non-teaching and teaching staff, educational intervention programs, counseling programs, even sports programs, parents' council records, research data and studies, among others. So what data reports are more useful to teachers? Test results for the entire class, either by grade or year level, student attendance information, teacher-made test results, individually or by class or school, learning progress of students, student behavioral and discipline records. What about for school administrators? What are data reports most useful to school administrators? Admission information records, student statistics profile, student attendance information, teachers and staff information, student performance in co-curricular and even extracurricular activities, cost effectiveness of educational and school programs, school facilities, and infrastructure. What are the common data reports formats that are most useful to them? To school administrators. The school administrators use all data types: attendance, progress reports, counseling reports, anecdotal records, and student surveys. Also, test results to assess progress, allocate resources, and create student development and school improvement programs. Information includes objectives, description of data, visual displays of information, summary reports, and recommendations. But wait! We were forced to believe that knowledge is power. But what if our eagerness for data is essentially holding us back? What if fascinating over evidence actually diminishes the value of our decision? These questions were to reckon when we proceed with data-driven decision-making. What are the major misconceptions about the effective use of data in decision-making? Build it, and they will use it. Teachers and school administrators need to know how to analyze data and use appropriate statistical analysis. Test scores determine the quality of school and students' education. What are necessary for the systematic use of data for decision-making? Collecting, integrating, and disseminating data, analyzing and reporting data, acting on the data, reviewing, analyzing, and planning. Now, let's go to the introduction of D3M framework, the theory of action and its supports. This framework provides a high-level, generalized view of theory of action, causal chain on how D3M can facilitate improving student achievement and school improvement, and supports and incentives needed to make effective use of data as possible. In the framework, we need 1. Data infrastructure that systematically organizes data and maintains high-quality raw data. 2. Analytical capacity to conduct analysis that ensures resulting data are relevant and diagnostic. 3. Culture of D3M that uses relevant and diagnostic data to inform instructional and operational decisions. The framework also requires overarching organizational support to improve student achievement and school wellness. How do you realize and apply the theory of action for D3M? Please note that a good theory of action does not simply elaborate on which action to take. Too often, teachers and school administrators jump quickly to action without thoroughly examining or otherwise appreciating what is what for students and school. Also, we should also remember that organizational supports to D3M in schools require strong data infrastructure that is capable of storing and organizing data from various sources, from teachers, students, parents, and even community. An analytic capacity that ensures resulting data are relevant and diagnostic to inform decision-making that ultimately improves student outcomes and school improvement. And lastly, organizational culture of D3M that instills and sustains a culture of data use, and not simply data collections which are just filed anyway and forgotten. Who are the decision makers and what data do they use? Decision makers are classroom teachers, school administrators or managers, and even guidance counselors. Each decision maker has specific objectives in using data to make decisions for students and school. Given the different kinds and types of data, how do we identify relevant and diagnostic data? We usually ask these questions. Are the data relevant to the decision makers and the decision at hand? How frequently are the data updated and delivered? What is the level of detail or aggregation of data? Are the data diagnostic for informing improved decisions? Were the data analyzed carefully? Otherwise, they could lead to flawed inferences and ruinous decisions. Are the data reliable and valid for informing decisions at hand? Now, where do we begin? This is simple flow of having a D3M in our schools. We start with having a D3M leadership team, collecting various types of data, analyzing data, then we proceed to designing specific strategies and developing goal-setting guidelines, generating hypotheses, and defining evaluation criteria. We end the process by making a commitment. What information does your school use to make decisions that will improve students' achievements and wellness? What learning, strength, and weaknesses are manifested in the data? Which groups or subgroups of students are having difficulty learning and social adjustment? What instructional changes might improve student learning? What interventions might enhance students' wellness in school? What professional development is needed to improve student learning? What materials and tools are needed to support changes in your school? What's out? Seduction of data. Too much data disables your decision making. Psychologists argue that we're obsessed with closing information gaps, and that fascination can lead us off track, especially today when easing ambiguity has become all too easy. Neurologically, data and information are addicting. Learning is linked with the release of dopamine, the same compelling drugs as cocaine. That's why we are vulnerable to an internet, FB, YouTube rife with attention parasites that leave worse to wear. In an ecosphere where every click conveys the promise of discovery, we are jeopardized of becoming information addicts. The challenge rests in setting apart between questions worth discovering and questions best left unsolved. Before I end my sharing, I would like to share some things that you should always remember about D3M. While data alone will not provide the school administrators with sensitivity experience and insight to get students on the right learning path, many educators believe that D3M process can essentially transform education. From the understanding of what really works with students to administrative processes and teachers' professional development. So I want to leave some truth that will guide about using and wanting to know about D3M according to SURE 2003. If you will not use data to make decisions, you will fly blindly. D3M is all about a process, not a rocket science and specific technology. Get ready and feel threatened. D3M will make you more accountable. D3M is not cheap. You will invest more money to implement it. D3M is also time-consuming. It refocuses your time because D3M is akin to doing action research. Your data's cleanliness is next to godliness. If you don't clean your data, your entire D3M initiative would be worthless. Word of warning, D3M is highly addictive and it is also contagious. My final note, in sum, being driven by data requires much more than existence of an adequate data infrastructure, the accessibility of the data, and the culture of data use. It also requires careful attention to ensuring that data are both relevant and diagnostic for each decision maker and decision, or else there is an imminent threat that the decision maker will either push into the wrong direction or swamp in the data.